We talked about the properties of real numbers, but there's one property that deserves its own lesson. And let's talk about the distributive property. So, the distributive property in general terms says if A, B, and C are real numbers, then A times B plus C is equal to A times B, now there's a plus, A times C. Now remember, if there's no symbol in between, that always means multiply. I know it can seem scary that we use letters A, B, and C, but those are just some numbers, and we're going to practice those. Now, I call this method the rainbow method. And it's because when we draw those little arrows, they look kind of like a rainbow. So whenever I say rainbow method, you're going to know what I'm talking about. So let's try a few. Let's use the distributive property on a few questions just to make sure we know exactly how to do it. So, we're going to use the rainbow method for this distributive property. First, I'm going to draw an arrow here. That tells me that I need to multiply -2 times 3. And then I'm going to multiply -2 times 8. Okay, remember a negative times a positive is going to give us a negative. So -2 times 3 is -6, and -2 times 8 is -16. So we go ahead and we subtract these numbers, and we end up with -22. Well, how about this one? This 5 is in a weird spot. Does that matter? No, because if you remember our our associative property of multiplication, it says that we can do just this. We can multiply in any order and it doesn't matter. So -6 times 5 minus 4 times 5. Now we just have a simple multiplication problem. -6 times 5 is -30. -4 times 5 is -20. And now we subtract. So -30 minus 20 gives us -50. Here's where we get into variables and letters, letters and numbers together, and they also have particular names. So when you have a term that has a number, it's called the coefficient. The x, as we've discussed, is called the variable. So when I say the coefficient of x, I'm talking about the number that is directly in front of the x. Notice there's no sign in between. So this is the same as saying 5 times x. Use the distributive property for each algebraic expression. So we're going to go ahead and do a few. And we're going to use the rainbow method. So 10 times x is 10x. So it doesn't matter what x is, we're going to end up multiplying it. Then we have plus 10 times 2. Let's clean this up a little bit. We can't do much with 10 times x because we don't know what x is. So until we know what x is, we leave it just like this. But we do know that 10 times 2 is 20. And this is what we call a simplified expression, because remember the difference between evaluate and simplify? Evaluate means that you're going to end up with a number as your answer. Simplify means you do as much as you can until there are no other mathematical operations that you can do. And since these are not the same terms, we cannot add them. This one looks a little bit scary because there's 3 terms inside the parentheses. Don't let that scare you because we're going to use our rainbow method to keep us organized. So here, I start with the first arrow of my rainbow, 3 times 2x. then I'm going to 3 times positive 5y. And last but not least, 3 times negative 6. All right, so now we have to clean this up a little bit. Now, this is the same as multiplying 3 things together. Well, we don't know what x is, but that's okay. We know what 3 times 2 is. That's 6. And then we can still leave the x as 6x. 3 times 5 is 15. And we don't know what y is, but we know it's multiplied. Last but not least, 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. This is as far as we can go at this point. And so this is our simplified expression. So we look at this and we have 6x plus 15y minus 18. So what is the coefficient of the y? Remember what I said the coefficient is? It's the coefficient in front of the variable. Well, the variable that we're looking for specifically is the y. So let's find the y term. That's that right there. So what is the number that is directly in front of the y? And in this case, it happens to be 15. So 15 is the coefficient of y. And that's our lesson on distributive property.